Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Metal Magdalene with Jet right here on Metal Messiah Radio. Tonight I have a special guest on the show. I have drummer extraordinaire, Mr. Nicholas Barker, who has been in bands such as Cradle of Filth, Dimmu Borgir, Lock Up Brujeria, and so much more. Also did a shit ton of guest spots on multiple albums as well as everything. Welcome to the show, Nick.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Nick, how old were you when you first became interested in drums?
Oh, that would be the first time I saw Nico McBrain on a promo clip. I think it was The Trooper. And since then, since that moment, the moment I saw him on that huge kit he plays, I was just absolutely spellbound by it. It's like, that's what I'm going to be. And it wasn't until, it took like a good 3 years of constantly pestering the parents, drum kit, birthdays and Christmas, drum kit. And they got me a guitar, and I didn't take to that. I was all about the drums. And then eventually, in 1986, when I was 13, my parents got me a really, really crappy 5-piece second-hand kit. I believe it was a brand called Apollo. It looked like old 70s kitchen units, the finish, like the wood veneer. I beat the shit out of that for a good couple of years.
But you must have been so happy that you finally got the drum kit.
Oh, it was insane. I would even try and play it in the morning before I went to school. And, of course, that didn't go down very well with the parents.
I can just imagine. So, of course, you had mentioned, a Nico and Iron Maiden, but who are some of your other, early influences as, a kid?
Well, Nico was obviously a huge influence. I think it was more because he had the big kit. Obviously, he's definitely got the chops, but also Clive Burr. The first band I ever really got into was AC/DC. So Phil Rudd has always been, a huge inspiration and influence to me. Tommy Aldridge, Bobby Rondinelli. I'd say John Bonham. Neil, obviously. Phil Animal Taylor, then I started getting into thrash as I got older, when I became a teen. So Dave Lombardo was definitely a huge influence. I got to give props to Tom Hunting because he's such an underrated drummer, and for me, he's one of the kings of the thrash drummers. Gene Hoglan, obviously, Paul Bostaph, the usual. Growing up as a kid in the mid-'80s.
And now, did you ever take any lessons or anything like that?
Absolutely not. I'm totally support. I learned to play by jamming to my AC/DC records with those big 70s headphones, that look like Mickey Mouse ears with the curly phone telephone cord. Yeah, so the first beat I learned to play was Highway to Hell. And the second beat I learned to play was Gimme All Your Lovin' by ZZ Top, because it's the same beat but just with the little snare accent. And
now, Nick, your career is and has been so insane, and this is only a 2-hour show, but let's start off with Cradle of Filth, okay? Even playing on their last album release in 2016. So how did you get the gig in the first place with those guys back then, and what was the experience like for you being in that band, especially back when you first started with them?
Well, how it started was we were friends on the underground, on the tape trading scene. I played in a death metal band, which, we missed the boat, if you like, and we just came along, 18 months too late. I was in a band called Monolith. We recorded an album which actually got shelved. It's never been released. There's some tracks on YouTube from it. And because of the tape trading, I was corresponding with the Cradle guys, and there was a huge buzz about their demos because at that time in the early 90s, when death metal was kind of waning a little bit, this underground black metal thing was coming up, and everyone was talking about it, and there was a real buzz about Cradle, and even though they were a demo band, I knew this band is going to go places. And we met a couple of times at shows, and we got talking. They invited me down to actually co-produce an album that never got finished. And during my time down there, while we were doing that recording session, they asked me if I'd like to join, and of course I didn't hesitate. I said yeah, and within 2 days I was already moved down there with my drum kit, sleeping on the Paul Allen's couch.
And was that the first band that you actually did like some major touring with too?
Well, I used to. I started out actually. I was the drum tech for Cancer.
Okay.
The death metal band from the Midlands
Mm-hmm.
here in the UK. Because I used to travel where I'm situated. It's very central in the UK. So all of the major cities like Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Bradford, they're all within an hour away in different directions from me. So when bands would come through, I would get to see them like more than one time on the tour. And I used to travel down to Birmingham all the time to see bands, Bolt Thrower, Napalm, Carcass, all the Birmingham bands, Benediction. And, I just became like a regular face, and I got talking to the Cancer dudes, and we became friends, and through that I got to know other people in that scene, and it kind of gave me a foot in the door to open my own band. And I started out as a drum tech, and my first drum tech gig was actually the Deicide tour in 1990, the first time they ever came to Europe. Cancer was the support band, and I was a total rookie. The first thing about touring or whatever, I knew how to set drums up and lift heavy things and unload the gear, load the gear. And within a couple of days, Glenn Benton said, "Hey kid, do you want to make some extra quid and work for us?" And of course my response was, "Yes please, Mr. Benton." Being some like little 17-year-old starry-eyed kid. So that's how I started. And like I said, that got my foot through the door to promote my own band, and that's how through the tape trading, that's how I got to meet Cradle. So I'd already toured quite a lot before I met Cradle. I was pretty experienced, compared to those guys, because I'd got the Cancer touring background behind me, and Deicide and other bands that I'd worked with.
And hey, when you were in Cradle of Filth, did you have somebody setting up your drums for you, or did you set your own up?
Oh, in the early days, no, it was all total DIY, We'd go on tour and we'd have to sleep in the van on top of the gear, just throw an airbed on top, and, we're all crammed in there like sardines. But as time went on and the band grew in popularity, then obviously there was we were playing bigger places and everything, so eventually we could afford to take a small road crew.
And so I'm assuming that you feel a little bit better about touring now than you did back in the old days?
Well, I'm a lot older now, so, carrying gear upstairs and stuff like that is a little bit more tiring. But, it's cool. I mean, I've loved every minute of it. I wouldn't change this for the world.
Now, Nick, another band that many of us know you from is also Dimmu Borgir. So tell us a little bit about that time, your experience with them, and how you got that gig.
Well, I got that gig. It's pretty much... I'd literally quit Cradle. I got the guys around my apartment, said, I'm done, I want out. And then within the next 48 hours, I was literally packing my drums to be shipped to Oslo. I had to learn a whole bunch of songs in like a day or 2 days, and I went over for the audition, and straight away, we clicked, and that was that. And then I went on tour about a week later. My first tour with Dimmu was with Dark Funeral, 7 weeks in Europe, sharing a book with the Dark Funeral guys.
So that must have been fun for you, at least, or different.
Oh, it was awesome. I have to say, Dimmu Borgir is probably, one of the best moments of my career in terms of, the music we created together, the places that it took me, and the level of popularity and everything. Everything seemed much higher and much more professional than Cradle, and a lot more transparency, So that was a big difference.
Okay, Nick, so tell us a little bit now about Lockup. Now, a totally different animal than Dimmu or Cradle of Filth, and a project started by, as most of us know, Shane of Napalm Death, and still going strong, and you an original member too. So still, how did this all happen, Nick?
Okay, well, the last two albums, the Cradle albums I played, on Dusk and Cruelty, were both recorded in UB40 studio in Birmingham. And, obviously the drummer goes first to track his drums. So as soon as I was done, I was straight into the metal bar every single day. And, I'd see Shane and Jesse and Mitch in there and, like, the Benediction guys. And, we just struck up a friendship, and we became great friends. And then, I ended up back at the Napalm House, which was... back then was known as like the party house. And we just listened to all the old school stuff that we loved, and inevitably we're drunk and, hey, we should do a band, and yeah, it came to fruition, and it went from there really.
And you guys did so much since then too, and you had some great vocalists too throughout the years. I mean, it's just such a fun band to listen to, and so many familiar names. I mean, you had Peter from Hypocrisy in there, and then you went to Thomas from At the Gates, and currently now you have a Kevin. What's it been like over the years in this band, working with such great musicians like that?
It's been nothing but fun. Obviously we have to put the time in to create the music, but working with such great musicians all across the board, it's a real honor, and it's just so much fun.
And and speaking of Kevin, how is he fitting in?
Oh, he fits like a glove. Shane's known Kevin since forever, and I've known Kevin for like 25 years. And that's why it was such a natural transition, because we're already friends. And Lockup and Brutal Truth, we toured the world together, and so they're a band that they don't see. It's not like, it never felt like they were another band. They just felt like an extension of our own band. We'd share equipment. We'd crash at each other's houses. We'd share dressing rooms. It's like an extension of your own band. So it was a perfect fit, and it just felt natural.
And with Kevin too, we're going to have him on the show, and we're going to let him tell us all about the new album you guys got out and all that kind of stuff. But what are your thoughts on the new album, Lockup, and how would you describe it to the listener, Nick?
I think it's the most the most extreme one we've done to date, in terms of blasting and speed, but also it's got a lot more groove parts and a lot more mid-pace kind of chuggy metal kind of ideas. I think we're going in the right direction, and everybody seems to like it. It seems to be well received so far. And I also use rototoms.
As so I've noticed. I thought it was kind of funny too, Nick, when I was listening to that album. I'm doing my work and I have it played in the background, and I'm like, wow, this part is really fast, this part is really fast. And then when I heard the song with the rototoms on it, I was like, what the hell did I just hear?
Well, I've always been a fan of them since I was a kid, like in the 80s with Seven Churches, Pleasure to Kill, Schizophrenia. So, I thought, nobody uses them anymore. I need to bring them back, because everybody loves them, and everybody talks about the drum break at the beginning of Pleasure to Kill. And so it's like, yeah, on this album, I'm bringing back the rotos. And everybody in the band absolutely loved the idea. Russ Russell, the producer, he loved it too. In fact, in the studio when I was tracking, I actually said, do you think I'm doing too much rotos? And he gave me such a dirty, like, disappointed stepfather look. I couldn't believe it.
I loved it. I really, really did. And it just, because it's a familiar sound that you don't, it's like you said, nobody uses them anymore. And back when they were really super popular, they were so fun. You know, you could spin them around and get all the different tones out of them, and it was just like this little thing. And hey, if Justin Timberlake could bring Sexy back, there's no reason why you can't bring Roto back.
Well, there's no way I'm going to bring Sexy back, so the Rotos, that's, second place, really.
But it is a lot of fun, and it really is a great album, and I think a lot of people are really going to really enjoy it. And speaking of all the stuff you've done, now somebody had mentioned to me that I can't forget to ask you about Ancient as well. So what's going on with them, and are you still involved with them?
Oh, absolutely. The album's released now, and it sounds great. I'm really proud to be a part of that project because they're great guys, and they're an integral part of the old school black metal scene. Mm-hmm. How it stands right now is the guys are like just calling me up all the time. When can we tour? When can we tour? And unfortunately, I can't do anything until the Brujeria cycle kind of dies down a little bit. But then also I've got Lockup. I've got a tour, so this is why we're trying to combine Lockup on Brujeria and Napalm Death tours. Try and kill two birds with one stone, if you like.
I saw that. That was like one of the first things I saw when I saw that tour. I'm like, what in the hell? You guys are going to be some tired chaps playing in all those bands.
Well, I'm only pulling double duty, but Shane's pulling triple duty. So, I don't know how he's going to do it, to be honest, unless he gets like a bionic heart
or something, and he's going to have to wear like a bladder inside his pants or something. He's like never going to be able to get off stage.
That's it. Unless he does the Ozzy thing and we just throw buckets of water on him so he can, pee on stage.
There you go. And so tell me too, Nick, this is another thing that always intrigued me. How does an English fellow like yourself end up in a band like Brujeria?
I've been friends with the guys in the band for 20 years now. Mm-hmm. It was actually Shane that introduced me. The last tour I did with Cradle in December '98 was with Napalm and Borgir. Mm-hmm. And that's when when I decided after that tour I'm done with Cradle. Me and Shane were friends. I explained to him, this is my intention. I'm going to quit the band. And after the tour, he said, well, why don't you come to LA with me for a vacation? And I'm recording the new Brujeria album, which at the time was Brujerismo. Mm-hmm. So I go over to LA with him and meet the guys. And I met Dino many times before, and he was cool, because he knew Cradle and the Fame Factory guys. They were really cool, and because they were already friends with Shane through the Brujeria thing and Napalm. Mm-hmm. So, I got to LA and Dino and Brujo turned around and said, hey, have you got any ideas? Let's record a song, we'll get you on the album. And I happened to co-write 3 songs. Brujerismo was one of them, and Laboratorio de Cristalitos and they're basically written around the drum beat.
Wow.
If you listen to the drum beats on those particular songs, I've got these drum ideas. Cradle didn't seem to like them. If you like them, let's work with it. And Dino straight away he clicked and he knew where I was coming from. We seemed to be on the same page. And then the next thing you know, I co-wrote 3 songs, and El Patron, Mr. Brujo, said. So it went from there, really. And that's one of the great things, and the irony about that band is, we have a certain song which translates to kill the whitey, but we're all whiteys behind the masks.
I love it. I mean, it's just, to me, they have always, no matter who's been in that band, it's always been such a fun band. You know what I mean? They're kind of very satirical, and it's just, I don't know, to me it's always just been a fun thing. Now, have you learned any Spanish since hanging with these guys, besides all the bad words?
I know kindergarten Spanish. I know all the bad words and all the profanity. but really my Spanish is quite basic and kindergarten. You know, I can order food, order drinks, say hello, how you doing. You know, you couldn't really have an in-depth conversation with me about sociology or, you know, politics.
So, but what's it been like touring with these guys then?
Oh, it's an absolute blast. You know, it really is. Like I say, I know all the curse words and the profanity. So, you know, when they're all talking among themselves, we pick up, you know, the basic context of the conversations, and when you hear all the profanity, it's, you know, that's when everyone starts laughing. But it's a great band to be in, and it's nothing but fun all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just watching all the, you know, antics and everything that going on. I mean, it looks like a really, really great all the bands that you play in, Nick, you look like you're having a really great time in.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
And you've been in a bajillion of them, and you've played, you know, I mean, just reading through the list, you've been like guest spots and session drummer and all this other kind of stuff. Do you ever say no to anybody?
Sometimes. I mean, my schedule's so tied up now with Brujeria, and I'll lock up, and then straight after I've got to put some time in with Ancient because they're getting a lot of offers in because of the new album. So right now I haven't got the time to take anything else on. Before I was taking on a lot of stuff because I didn't really have heavy touring commitments with the bands that I'm in now, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, when I've got free time, playing with other musicians and different styles to me is the best thing ever because it broadens my artistic. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just great to jam with different people. So I'm always down for that. Mm-hmm.
And well, you have jammed with quite a few of them. Do you even know how many albums you've been on?
I can't even remember. I'll reel them off, and then somebody will say, "Hey, you forgot this band." I'm like, "Oh yeah, really." But I played with some great musicians, and I feel very, very privileged, and it's been an honour.
And, you know, speaking about Ancient a little bit more, and the new album, so what could you tell us about the new Ancient album and what you contributed for that?
Oh, well, I did the pre-production in Greece with the guys, and basically they gave me carte blanche to, you know, do whatever I want. You know, they told me, well, Zell, and he told me, I'd like a blast beat here, but mainly they just said, look, just Barkerize everything.
Wow.
Even though that's a word, but apparently so. So, yeah, they gave me pretty much free rein, and I listened to the music, and then, you know, obviously I'm no stranger to black metal, and, you know, we just got together, jammed it out, did pre-production in Greece, and then we recorded the album at Lake Como in Italy.
Wow. So at least you're having fun. I mean, you get to play all these different kinds of styles. I mean, you're playing black metal, then you're playing this stuff with Lockup, and then this stuff with Brujeria. I mean, you're like all over the place, so you must definitely not get bored after you, like, what did you say? Barkerize everything?
Well, I'm also jamming with Nuclear Assault.
Oh, yeah, how could I forget that, too?
Yeah. You know, I just got back from Australia with those guys, and to play thrash metal, especially with a band that I grew up with, you know, and I got to play with Exodus, Possessed, Testament. You know, it's surreal in a way, and especially when I come home, like when I see all my old high school mates that, you know, they're still into metal, but you know they work in banks and real estate, and you know. They totally don't look like metal guys anymore, but when we all get together, you know, they can't believe that I played all these bands that we used to have posters on our walls of, you know. And so they kind of think I'm, you know, some kind of like Guns N' Roses type guy, and I'm really not, you know. It's just me, and I just happen to play drums, and I befriended all these people through my career, and you know, they call me up when they need me.
And is that what happened with Nuclear Assault? I mean, did you just, like, play live with them?
Yeah. Obviously Lilka, Danny is a really, really good friend for like over 20 years, and he was in Brutal Truth with Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Also a big fan of Cradle in the early 90s. That's how I got to meet him, and we became friends. So it's very incestuous in some respects. Also, Danny has filled in lockup for us before in the US and in Europe when Shane has been busy with Napalm.
I can't keep it straight. I mean, just that tour that you guys are going on is incestuous, for crying out loud.
Oh, I know. And we're all on one bus too, so it's even more incestuous.
I don't want to know anymore. Okay, we'll just leave it. So, Nick, tell us a little bit about your actual gear and stuff. Now, what kind of kit are you currently playing on?
Okay, I'm endorsed by Sona, a German company. They make fantastic drums. I play Peisty cymbals. They're great cymbals. Been a fan of them since the 80s, seeing people like Clive Burr and Nico McBrain, Charlie Benante playing them from Anthrax, so they're my main sponsors. And then I play Vic Firth drumsticks and Jarzi Kopyto pedals, which are from Poland.
Wow.
And I believe it translates to the Devil's Hoof.
There you go. Now, how long have you been with Sonar now?
I got the Sonar deal when I was in Testament, actually, through my good friend Derek Roddy, because he was playing Sonar at the time, and we were at NAMM, and I bumped into him, and he's like, "Hey, dude, you got to come over and check out the Sonar booth." And he introduced me to the guys, and we got talking, and straight there and then they said, "We want you to play our drums." And they've took good care of me ever since. So I really owe a lot to Derek for that. So cheers, Derek.
And you look really pretty behind that kit too, Nick.
Oh, thank you.
Now, do you use the same setup for all the bands you're in, or do you have to take some things off of it, or what?
No, it's a totally different spec for each band. Mm-hmm. The Dimmu spec was probably the biggest. That had like 4 splash cymbals, 4 crashers, 2 chinas, 2 rides, 2 hats. The Brujeria set is much more scaled down. Sometimes I just use 1 rack tom in the middle, and 3 crash cymbals, ride, china. The ancient kit was almost like the Dimmu kit because, they were like, "We want you to Barkerize it, do everything like what we did on the Dimmu stuff, and, this and that, and double rides and double chinas." And, I was like, "Well, can I have another pair of hands, please?" But
it is, the black metal stuff is a little more epic in those standards anyway, so you gotta have epic kit, Nick,
Yeah. Absolutely. With the splashes and everything, you can create a lot more percussive passages and, little chops here and there, with splashes and, an extra ride and all that kind of stuff. The lockup spec is, that's pretty much meat and potatoes, like 3 racks across the top, 10, 12, 13, 16 floor. I got crash, china, crash, china, ride.
Rototoms.
Yeah. No. Oh, and the rotos too.
So is there any gear that's out there now that you have your eye on? Like any symbol that you feel like all of a sudden now you gotta have or anything?
Well, Peisty have just they're just about to release a full set of the Nico spec.
Oh.
But even for me, it's not cheap.
No.
And I really like that because it comes in a beautiful packaged kind of like wooden box with Nico's stamp on it and the logo, and it's like a real collector's piece. And also, my bucket list kit would be the Nico replica kit, the SQ2, which Sona do.
Mm-hmm. You're such a huge fan.
Oh, yeah.
Ever since you was a little tyke.
Yeah. 10 years old.
Now, your drumming style, especially in lockup, is like so fast and extreme and everything. Have you ever had a drum-related injury?
Yes, I have. It's not that fast, really. I mean...
Oh, come on. Just pretend, at least.
Okay. Now, as I'm getting older now, I find I have to warm up more the wrists, so I have to... do single stroke exercises probably 40 minutes before we go on stage. A couple of times I've not warmed up properly, and I got some swelling in my right wrist, which caused a little bit of concern. And I had also, when we recorded the Necropolis Transparent, I got this weird pins and needles in my fingers. Who was tracking the drums, but the hard drive kept crashing, so it was like again. So I was warming up, then cooling down, then having to go and play again. So I was warming up, cooling down, warming up, cooling down. I guess the hands didn't like it so much.
Well, that's what I mean. It happens, and you don't usually hear a lot about hand and wrist injuries. It's usually, my leg and my ankle and my knee and everything else. But what about lately, though? Have you been having any troubles lately with any of that? Maybe it's old age.
Yeah, I've noticed if I play for a very long time. Still there?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I've noticed that if I play for a very long time, sometimes I get cramps in the night in my calf muscles. I guess that's just with old age, or maybe I need to start stretching out the legs and warming up the feet a bit more now I'm in my mid-40s.
Oh, yeah. You're super old, Nick. So, hey, what would you tell somebody, young kids thinking about a career in drumming?
Don't do it, because there is no career in it anymore. The music industry's totally changed from, when I first started back in 1990. It really is different now. And it's a lot even for me and bands that have been around, since the late 80s, early 90s or whatever. It's, the industry's totally different now. And there's so many bands out there, and, you don't get the same label support anymore because, because of the download culture. It's totally changed everything, how the industry works now.
That is true, and with, compared to back in the day, when really it's like, the only way you really heard other bands was through tape trading, and through all things, the mail. The mail, kids forget what the mail is, everything is so electronic now and so accessible now. Whereas, back then you were excited, or you were waiting for something, or you got a tape in the mail, you were so excited to get it. Now there's not even like any excitement for anything anymore. It's like, oh, this album is coming out. Half the time you could get like a leaked copy of it before it even comes out, So I think personally a lot of that excitement and magic of those days, I mean, even after the tape trading days, but still before all the social media, when you knew a new album was coming out, you couldn't wait to go to the record store and get it. And now it's just like, whatever. I
agree totally. I mean, I remember being so excited when, Rain in Blood was released. And I'd saved my money, and, me and my mates, we'd go down to the local record store on a Saturday, and all we'd do is hang out outside the record store, and we'd just talk about new records. And what we would do is we'd all buy a new release each, and then we'd just tape them for each other. So, even though you'd only bought one record, you'd still come away from the weekend with like 6 different albums, on tape.
And it was fun because you would go back to somebody's house and you'd listen to that for all day, and it would just be, it's so different than now. I don't even think that a lot of people could even understand when you're trying to explain the experience now.
Yeah, I agree totally with you. We used to, do you remember holding the vinyl and just like analysing the artwork, every little detail, and then you'd turn it over and you'd read the thanks list, and there'd be all these bands that you'd never heard of, but like, hey, we should check out these. These have got a cool name. And, the next week you'd go to the record store and you'd see those records that you'd read about on the thanks list the week previous. And, okay, not every new band was a success, but 9 times out of 10, that's how we discovered great new music, and also what T-shirts the bands were wearing. That's how I got into punk and hardcore, because I'd see bands like Metallica and Slayer wearing DRI, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys T-shirts, and Agnostic Front, and that's how that was an extension of like the metal to us.
It was a lot of fun. Now, when you were a teenager or a kid or whatever, what were like some of the actual first shows that you ever saw? What was the first show that you ever saw?
First show I saw was Saxon at Sheffield City Hall.
And what did you think? Yeah.
It was amazing. I'm fortunate enough now I can say I'm good friends with Nigel Glockler and his wife. To see Nigel on his huge kit and the drum solo, it was my first real big concert, and I remember just being totally mesmerised by it. And the next day at school, my ears were ringing, you got like the tinnitus thing, and the teacher was just blah, 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 and all I could think about was the show last night and how amazing it was. And it was the same when the first time I went to see AC/DC as a kid, Iron Maiden, Motorhead. And Motorhead was the worst, because I think I couldn't hear for about a week.
It's awesome. And of course, you see that first show and you have to get a shirt. Other cool things back then, but you had to get a shirt. You couldn't, no matter what, you had to get a shirt from the shows.
Absolutely. And also the tour program. Nobody does tour programs now.
That is very true. Back then, that was like the things you had to have. You had to have that.
And you're reading it and looking at it in between the changeovers of the support band and the main band, and just like, wow, and reading all the technical info and not really understanding so much of it, but just being so, like, happy and this is awesome,
Yeah, it's a shame a little bit that people can't experience the same thing, but, sometimes technology is for the better. It does get a lot of things out there faster to more people and everything, but it just loses a little bit of the magic, I think.
I think it's sterilized everything, really, and taken away the wow factor.
That's true. I'm going to have to agree with you there. So, Nick, what's coming up for you now for the rest of this year? Now, we know you got that tour you were talking about with, what is it, Lockup, Brujeria, and somebody else?
Napalm.
Yeah, okay, how could I forget? The incestuous 3.
Well, like I said, I leave England on the 16th to fly to Mexico, because we play Viva Latino Festival in Mexico City, which is like kind of like the Glastonbury of Mexico. It's all Latin bands, and then from there we go down to Central America, which we've never played before, and then from there down to South America. After that, we start the European Napalm tour. That's the Incestuous tour, and that takes us to the end of May, and then it's festival season, as you know. We've got a bunch of festivals with different bands, Lockup, Brujeria. There might be some ancient festivals too, which I'm trying to work in the schedule. And then September, October, Napalm, Brujeria and Lockup go to Australia and Japan, and we do Asia. And after that, we come back the beginning of October, and then we start the new US tour with, I believe it's with Voodoo Glow Skulls. And that will take us to at the end of November, and then I believe Lockup will come to Europe and do another tour in December. And then January, I believe it's going to be Lockup and Ancient doing stuff. Not together, obviously I'll be bouncing from one band to another. But I'm going to be pretty much busy until the end of summer 2018, I think.
Oh my God. Well, I guess you won't be getting in too much trouble then, or maybe you will, I don't know, but...
I'll try not to, but can't any promises.
You're going to be a busy guy. And Nick, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out to come on. I'm glad we finally caught you in like a week that you're actually not out with a million of these bands. So thanks for taking the time out finally and getting on the show and telling us a little bit about your extensive career, and all the best to you out there all over the world and doing all this stuff.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure talking to you.